The auction room was cold, dim, and smelled like rust and oil. The crowd was small, mostly rough-looking aliens and bored traders waiting for something valuable. But no one was prepared for what rolled in next, a metal cage, dented and dusty. Creaked as two guards dragged it to the center. Inside, curled up like a broken toy, was a small alien girl. Her body was thin, too thin, bones showing under gray skin. Her hair was tangled and her wrists were chained. She didn't speak, didn't even look up. Next item. The slaver shouted, voice tired, unknown species. Female, young, can walk. Barely eats, might make a servant or pet. A few in the crowd chuckled. She's half dead. Someone muttered, she's not worth the cage she's in, said another, bids. Didn't come. No one raised a hand. Even the screen behind the stage showed starting price. 1 credit, and still nothing. That's when a figure moved from the back. A human, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a simple brown coat and a neutral expression. He walked slowly, hands in pockets, eyes scanning the cage. He didn't laugh like the others. He didn't. Mock 1 credit, he said clearly. Silence followed. The slaver blinked. What? Tio repeated. 1 credit. The crowd laughed louder now, but for a different reason. Why would a human want that? One alien asked, she's not even pretty. Another snorted, probably collecting trash. Someone joked. But the human didn't care. He dropped a coin on the metal tray near the stage. The slaver shrugged, pressed a button, and the lock on the cage clicked open. She's yours, the slaver said. Good luck. She bites. The man didn't flinch. He walked to the cage, crouched down, and looked inside. The girl shrank back, eyes wide, her thin arms shaking. She expected pain, a command, or maybe a collar, but instead, he gently said, let's go. She didn't move. She didn't trust him. So he backed away a step, giving her space. I won't hurt you, he said, voice calm. I'm taking you somewhere safe. Still, no movement. The crowd began to lose interest, moving on to the next item, some shiny weapon, but the human waited. After a long moment, the girl slowly crawled out of the cage. Her legs shook under her, but she stood, barefoot, chained, and silent. She followed him, step by step. They left the auction hall without another word. The slavers didn't stop them. No one cared. To them, she was just junk taken off the shelf. Outside, the cold station air smelled cleaner. The girl's eyes twitched at the lights, and she nearly tripped, but the human stopped, turned, and reached out his hand. She froze, staring at it like it was a weapon. Slowly, she reached for it, then pulled back. Instead, she kept walking behind him, limping but not falling. He didn't force her, didn't grab her, just walked, slow, enough for her to follow. He brought her to a small room, plain but warm. A heater hummed in the corner. A folded blanket lay on the bed. There was food on the table, real food, not slop. The girl stood at the doorway, shaking. He pointed at the bed. You can sleep here. Then to the food. You can eat whenever you want. She didn't believe him. Not yet. But her eyes darted toward the bread and soup. He didn't push, just said, I'll be over there if you need me, and sat at the desk. He turned his back to show her he wasn't a threat. She waited, watched, her knees trembling. Then slowly, very slowly, she limped toward the food. Her hands shook as she picked up the bread. She sniffed it, hesitated, then took a small bite. Her eyes watered. It had flavor, it was warm, it wasn't a trick. She looked at the human. Confused, he didn't move, didn't even turn around. She whispered, almost too quiet to hear. Why? He didn't answer right away, but after a moment, he spoke. Because someone should have helped you a long time ago. And for the first time in her broken life, the alien girl didn't feel like property. She didn't feel invisible. She felt noticed, and that was how everything began. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater and the sound of soup being slurped. The alien girl sat on the floor, not on the bed, not on the chair. Old habits were hard to break. She ate with both hands, fast, like someone might steal it away. The human watched from the side, not staring, just making sure she was okay. He said nothing, but his calm presence filled the room. When she finished the soup, she looked up at him. For the first time, her eyes were sharp, wide, and gold, but full of fear. "Do you want more?" he asked gently. She flinched at his voice, then nodded once. He stood up slowly, careful not to move too fast. He didn't want to scare her more than life already had. He poured her another bowl and placed it on the table. She crawled over, eyes never leaving him, like a wild animal testing the space between safety and danger. She took the bowl, then backed away again, back to the floor. He sat down at the desk again, arms crossed, watching the heater now, not her. After a while, she whispered something. He didn't hear it. She tried again, louder this time. "Why did you buy me?" He turned his head slowly, surprised she had spoken. "You weren't supposed to be there," he said quietly. She looked confused. "I don't buy people," he continued. "I just saw someone who needed help. No one helps me," she said, voice flat. "Until now," he replied. She stared at him hard, her eyes narrowing like she was trying to break through his face. "You're lying," she whispered. He didn't argue. "Then you'll see for yourself," he said simply. No cage, no chains. Her eyes dropped to the metal cuffs still clamped around her wrists and ankles. He stood and walked to the drawer, pulled out a toolkit. Kneeling down beside her, he held out a small tool. "May I?" he asked. She hissed and backed away. Baring her tiny teeth, he didn't move closer. "Okay," he said gently, setting the tool on the floor. "You can do it when you're ready." She didn't expect that. No one ever asked. No one ever waited. Her mind didn't know how to process this kind of freedom. After a long pause, she crawled forward, took the tool, and with shaky hands, began working on the ankle cuff. It sparked once, made her jump, but it loosened. After a few more clicks, it fell off. She stared at it in disbelief. Then she looked up at the man, who was still watching from a distance. "Why? Really?" she asked again, her voice quieter, like she didn't want to be heard. He sighed and sat down on the floor too, cross-legged. "My daughter died last year," he said. "She was about your age." The alien girl's head tilted, confused. "I saw you in that cage, and I felt something break," he added. "It wasn't about saving someone, I just couldn't walk away again." She looked at him differently now. Not with full trust, but with less fear. The second cuff came off, then the third. Her fingers were skilled, though shaky. Soon she was free physically, but her mind was still in chains. She stood up slowly, not as wobbly as before. "What's your name?" she asked him. "Call me Jacob," he replied. She didn't give her name in return. She didn't have one, or maybe she had forgotten it. Jacob noticed and said, "You don't have to tell me yours, but would you like a new one?" She blinked. "A name. Something you choose, not something they gave you," he said. The idea was strange to her, but powerful. After a moment, she whispered, "Kira." "Then that's your name." He smiled. "Welcome, Kira," for the first time. Her lips moved upward. Just a little, not a smile, but close. That night, Kira slept on the bed. She curled up like always, knees tight to her chest, but she slept, and Jacob didn't lock the door in the middle of the night. She woke up with a scream. Her breath came fast, eyes wide, heart pounding. She had dreamed of metal walls, collars, shouting voices, pain. But the room was warm, quiet, safe, and Jacob was still there, sleeping in the chair beside the heater, arms crossed, head tilted. She watched him in the dark. He didn't move, didn't wake, but something inside her shifted. Maybe, just maybe. She didn't have to run anymore. The next morning came with soft light from the small window above the bed. Kira sat up slowly, eyes scanning the room like she expected it to disappear. But everything was still there. The blanket over her legs, the half-eaten bread on the table. And Jacob, asleep in the chair near the heater, his arms still crossed. She stared at him for a while. Not because she feared him, but because she didn't understand him. Kindness was not something she trusted yet. She stood up, bare feet on the metal floor, and crept toward him. She leaned in close, her sharp eyes watching his face. He didn't flinch, didn't open his eyes. He slept deeply. Like someone who wasn't afraid of her, that confused her more than anything. She turned away and moved to the corner, where a mirror hung crooked on the wall. She looked at herself, frailly looked. Thin face, scars across her collarbone, dirty skin. Her fingers touched her cheek as if she was seeing her reflection for the first time. That's when she whispered it, Kira. The name didn't feel like her yet. It was new, clean, like a shirt that didn't belong to her, but it had been given without force, without pain. So she whispered it again. Kira, behind her, Jacob stirred, groaning as he stretched his arms. You slept well? He asked with a yawn. Kira nodded slowly, still watching herself in the mirror. He stood, walked over to the shelf, and poured some water into a tin cup. He held it out to her. Here, drink. She hesitated, then accepted it. The water was fresh, not stale, like the slaver camps. Clean and cool. She drank it all in one go. Jacob noticed her gaze return to the mirror. You don't have to hate what you see, he said softly. Kira didn't answer. Those marks on your body, those don't define you, he added. I don't. Know who I am, she said. Then you get to decide, he said. You've got a name now, Kira. He smiled gently, and that's the first step. She looked at him, her eyes holding something new, curiosity, maybe even hope. Why did you choose it? She asked. Jacob shrugged. It just sounded strong. You think I'm strong? She asked with a raised brow. I think you survived what would have broken most people. He replied, that's more than strength. Kira looked down at her wrists, where the cuffs had once been. She could still feel the weight of them, even though they were gone. She pressed her fingers around the skin, as if testing her own freedom. You're different, she said to Jacob. Most humans don't care. Most people don't, he corrected her. Doesn't matter the species. Then why care about me? She asked, voice quiet again. Jacob looked at her for a long moment before speaking. Because no one else did. Silence filled the room. Kira sat on the edge of the bed now, not the floor, her back straight, her hands resting on her knees. She looked more like someone learning how to exist again. Jacob picked up a small device and placed it on the table. It lit up with a soft beep, displaying a hollow menu. We need to register you, he said. Kira's eyes narrowed. Register? For what? To make sure no one can claim you again, he said. If you're registered under my protection, no slaver or bounty hunter can touch you. She didn't speak right away. It felt like a trap, but so far, nothing had been. Still, she asked, what? If I don't want protection? Jacob gave a soft laugh. Then we don't do it. You can leave any time you want, even now. He nodded. The doors open. Kira stood slowly, walked to the door, and opened it. Outside, the hallway was empty. The sound of cargo loaders humming in the distance. She stared for a long time. Her foot touched the hallway floor. Then she stepped back inside and closed the door. I'm not ready, she said. Jacob smiled. That's okay. He handed her a small ID chip. For now, just keep this, in case you ever need to prove you exist. She took it, holding it like a fragile piece of truth. I never had one before, she whispered. Now you do, he replied, that night. She didn't sleep curled in a ball. She stretched out, arms free, legs relaxed, and for the first time, she dreamed not of cages or chains, but of stars. Of wide skies and a name echoing in her mind. Kira, asterisk. Kira woke early. Long before Jacob, the room was quiet. The station lights outside, blinking through the small window. She sat up, stretched her arms slowly, and listened. No footsteps, no chains, no shouting, only silence and her own breathing. She looked at her hands, turning them over. They were thin but healing. A few cuts were scabbing. The skin wasn't as dry for the first time. Her fingers didn't feel like they belonged to someone else. Jacob stirred in his chair and opened one eye. "You slept like a real person." He mumbled with a sleepy grin. "I dreamed," she said softly. He blinked at her. "What did you dream about?" She looked toward the ceiling, sky, running. Not being afraid, Jacob smiled and nodded. "That's a good dream." Later that morning, Kay gave her a new shirt, clean pants, and boots that actually fit. Kira looked down at herself in the mirror again. She looked taller, stronger, not just from clothes, but from something building inside her. Something she couldn't name. Jacob handed her a datapad. "This is how I work," he said. "Old salvage codes, ship repairs, scanning tech. Want to learn?" Kira nodded, eager to do anything useful. Hours passed with her watching him fix wires, connect power cores, and decode data. Her eyes followed every move, her hands itching to try. He noticed, and finally handed her a tool. "Your turn," he said. She took it, hesitated, and started working on the open panel. To his surprise, she didn't just copy his actions, she understood them. She rewired the interface faster than expected, even bypassing a broken relay with a sharp twist. Jacob blinked. "Impressed? Where did you learn that?" She shrugged. "They made us fix machines sometimes. But I wasn't allowed to speak or ask questions. Looks like you learned anyway," he said. Kira smiled. Just a little. It was the first time someone complimented her for something real. That night, everything changed. Jacob was out getting parts from the docking bay. Kira was alone in the room, reading old data logs. She heard it before she saw it. Metal boots in the hallway. 3 sets, moving fast. She stood, alert, eyes narrowing. The door burst open. 3 men in black armor rushed inside. Slavers, one held a stun baton, the other a net launcher. The third had a scanner blinking red, pointed straight at her. "She's here," he growled. "Get the girl." Kira froze, but only for a second. Then something inside her snapped. She leaped toward the closest one before he could raise his baton. Her foot slammed into his chest, sending him flying into the wall. The second tried to shoot the net, but she rolled under it, kicked his knee, and grabbed the weapon. A loud crack filled the room as she flipped it around and struck him in the jaw. The third man lunged, but Kira was faster. She twisted, dodged, grabbed his arm, and slammed him into the table with strength no one expected from her frame. The datapad flew across the room, sparks flying as it shattered. All 3 men groaned. On the floor, stunned and defeated, Kira stood over them, breathing heavy, hands shaking, not from fear, but from energy, like a beast finally unleashed. Jacob returned seconds later. Saw the mess, the attackers, and Kira standing tall in the middle of it. His mouth dropped open. "Kira." "I didn't run," she said. "I fought." He walked to her slowly, checking the slaver's gear. "Do you know what you just did?" he asked. "You took out 3 trained bounty thugs in under 30 seconds. Kira looked down at her. "Hands again. I didn't know I could do that." Jacob nodded slowly. "You've got reflexes faster than most trained soldiers. You think they trained me?" she asked. "I think your species might be more dangerous than anyone realized," he replied. He helped her sit, handing her a bottle of water. "You okay?" She nodded, but her hands were still trembling. I didn't feel scared, she whispered. I just moved, like my body knew what to do. Jacob stared at her, now with new eyes. What are you, Kira? She looked at him and said something even she didn't understand. I think I'm someone they were afraid to let grow up. Outside, alarms started ringing through the station. The slavers had friends and they wouldn't stop with just 3. Kira and Jacob were no longer invisible. Now they were targets. But Kira didn't feel like prey anymore. For the first time, she felt like a weapon, and now she had someone worth protecting too. The station lights flickered red. Warning alarms echoed through the hallways like metal screams. Kira and Jacob stood in the workshop, surrounded by broken furniture, stunned slavers, and scattered tools. Jacob moved quickly, locking the door and pulling down the metal shield, but both of them knew it wouldn't hold forever. They know you're here now, Jacob said, grabbing a small comlink and scanning channels. Kira stood still, breathing hard but focused. I didn't mean to bring trouble, she whispered. Jacob turned toward her. No, Kira. They brought it, not you. Outside the door, heavy boots pounded closer. More than 3 this time. More organized, more dangerous. They'll try to take you back, he said, pulling a rifle from the wall. They think they own you. No one owns me, Kira replied, her eyes fierce. Jacob looked at her, saw the fire behind her gold eyes, and nodded. Then, let's prove it. He handed her a small energy blade. Can you use this? She took it, activated the blade, and spun it once in her hand with smooth speed. Yes, good, Jacob said. They'll come through that door in under 3 minutes. Kira stepped forward. We don't run. He shook his head. Not yet. The door shook under the weight of a battering ram. Again and again, the hinges cracked and sparks flew. Then the blast came. Loud and blinding, the door exploded inward, and armed slavers rushed through in tight formation, but they didn't expect what was waiting for them. Kira moved like lightning, a blur of motion and precision. She knocked the first attacker's weapon away, ducked under the second's swing, and sliced clean through the third's armor. Jacob took position behind the tool table, firing controlled shots at legs and arms. He wasn't trying to kill, just stop. The room turned into chaos. Sparks flew from metal walls. Lights shattered. Smoke filled the air, but through it all, Kira stood talcum, fast, deadly. One slaver tried to stun her with a net gun. She leaped over it, landed behind him, and with a sharp twist, disabled his armor pack. Another fired a plasma bolt, but she caught it on her blade, spun, and used the back of her hand to knock him unconscious. Jacob shouted over the comlink, security. They're breaking station law, unauthorized weapons, and slave tags. Get someone here. Kira heard the word slave, and something in her snapped again. She screamed a short, sharp sound, and her next attack sent two slavers crashing through the wall into the corridor. The remaining slavers hesitated. She didn't look like a prisoner anymore. She looked like a storm. Then, just as suddenly, it was quiet again. The last slaver dropped his weapon and raised both hands. I didn't sign up for this, he said, voice shaking. Kira stared at him, then stepped back. She wouldn't kill someone who had already surrendered. Jacob cuffed the man with magnetic binders. Kira, he said softly, you okay? She nodded, then dropped the energy blade. I didn't want to fight, she said, but I won't be taken again. Suddenly, more footsteps arrived, but this time, not slavers. Station security officers stormed in. Weapons drawn, Jacob held his arms up. They attacked first. Check the cameras. The security chief stepped forward, saw the scene, the tagged weapons. The armor, all of it illegal. And then he saw Kira, standing tall but bleeding slightly from a burn across her shoulder. Is that the lost girl? One officer whispered. I thought she was dead. Not dead, Jacob replied. just finally free. Security took the slavers into custody, dragging them out while others scanned the room. Kira sat down quietly, wiping her hands. She stared at the cut on her arm, but said nothing. Jacob knelt beside her. "You did good," he said. "You stayed strong." "I'm tired," she whispered. He nodded. "Let's get out of here." They packed only what they needed: supplies, credits, and an old data drive. Jacob had kept hidden. They boarded a small freighter he once used for repairs as the ship pulled away from the station. Kira stood at the viewing window. Below her, the place that once held her in a cage grew smaller and smaller. She didn't smile, not yet, but her eyes were dry. "Where now?" she asked. Jacob stood beside her. "Anywhere you want." And for the first time, the galaxy felt big in a different way, not dangerous, but open. And Kira was no longer something to be sold or hidden. She was something to be feared, or maybe someday, something to be respected. The stars stretched wide outside the ship's window. Kira sat quietly, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the black sky dotted with light. She had never been this far from a cage. She had never felt this. Weightless, Jacob piloted the small freighter through a quiet trade route. Avoiding the major lanes, he knew slavers didn't give up easily. He knew they'd come again, but right now, all he cared about was resting, healing, and free. The silence was peaceful, but peace never lasted long. A sharp alarm beeped across the control panel. Jacob's eyes narrowed. "Unmarked ship behind us," he muttered. He opened the external view screen. The ship chasing them was fast. Black and ugly slaver design. No official ID. Kira stood beside him now, already understanding the look. In his eyes, "They found us again," she said softly. Jacob nodded. "Their jamming comes." A second alarm screamed incoming missile. Jacob dove for the manual thrusters, spinning the freighter sideways as the missile flew past the hull and exploded nearby. The ship rocked, lights flickered, and sparks rained from the ceiling. Kira held on tight, her legs steady even as the ship groaned under the pressure. "We have to land," Jacob said. "There's a mining colony ahead, abandoned but still showing oxygen and power." He pushed the ship forward, racing toward a rocky moon below. The slaver ship followed, firing again. Another hit shook the freighter. Fire sparked at the engine, and smoke filled the back cabin. Jacob gritted his teeth. "Kira, prep for emergency landing." She nodded and ran to secure the storage lockers, strapping down crates and grabbing emergency kits. The freighter hit the moon's surface hard, skidding, dragging, then finally coming to a dusty stop. Silence returned, but the fire in the engine didn't care. Flames spread quickly through the back of the ship. Kira and Jacob grabbed what they could: supplies, tools, weapons, and rushed outside. Thick black smoke poured from the freighter. Behind them, the enemy ship landed Toot's ramp, lowering armed figures marching out. Jacob aimed his blaster, but there were too many. He looked at Kira. "You run," he said firmly. "I'll hold them here." Kira stared at him, breathing hard. "No," she said. "You go." Jacob insisted. "They want me." But Kira shook her head. "They won't get either of us." She turned and ran, not away, but toward the burning ship. Jacob called after her, "Kira, what are you doing?" She didn't stop. She ran straight into the fire, smoke curling around her like angry ghosts. Inside, the heat was brutal, but she moved fast. She grabbed a small energy pack from the wall and slammed it into the ship's old defense panel. Sparks burst, and the system reactivated. Auto turrets on the hull powered up with glowing red eyes. Outside, the slavers didn't know what hit them. Turrets fired from above, sharp, focused beams striking their weapons, scattering them into cover. Jacob ducked, shouting with surprise as the tide suddenly turned. Kira stumbled out of the burning ship, coughing hard, soot covering her face. but her hands held the emergency beacon one she had pulled from the engine core. She activated it, aimed it at the sky, and sent a signal to the closest patrol system. Within seconds, the beacon burst a signal wide and loud across the sector. "Slave ship location detected," the beacon said. "Help requested," the slaver. Crew realized too late what had happened. They tried to retreat to their ship, but it was already too damaged to fly. The turrets tore through their hull, and smoke poured from their engines. Kira dropped to one knee, gasping for air. Jacob ran to her, pulling her close. "Why did you go back in?" he asked. She looked up at him, face dirty but eyes burning with fire. "Because I wasn't going to let you die for me. I'm not someone to protect anymore," she whispered. "I'm someone who protects now." He looked at her, stunned not just by what she did, but by who she had become. She wasn't the same girl in the cage. She wasn't even the same girl who cried in his room. She had chosen to face the fire, not for survival, but for someone she cared about, above them. The sound of engines filled the air again. This time, it was a patrol ship responding to the emergency beacon when the officers arrived. They found Jacob and Kira alive, the slavers captured, and the freighter half-burned. The commander of the patrol ship stepped down, helmet under one arm. "You did this?" he asked. Looking at Kira, she nodded. "You're not tagged," he said, scanning her wrist. "You're free." Kira looked at Jacob, then back at the commander. "I made a choice," she said. "I won't go back." The commander nodded. "Then come with us, wheel. Make sure you stay free." Jacob placed a hand on her shoulder. Proud, Kira didn't flinch. She didn't hide. She stood tall. Her scars no longer a shame, but a story. The patrol ship cruised silently through space, far from the slaver moons. Inside, the lights were warm, the air clean, and the atmosphere calm. Kira stood at the viewing window, watching stars pass by like soft trails of fire. She was wearing a new outfit, now simple, functional, and clean. No chains, no collar, no tracking device on her wrist. She was free, and it didn't feel like a dream anymore. Jacob walked up beside her, sipping something hot from a metal mug. "You okay?" he asked. Kira nodded. "I keep thinking it's not real," she whispered. "Like I'll wake up and find myself back in the cage." Jacob looked at her for a moment. "Want to know the truth?" "I feel the same," he said. She turned to him, surprised. "I lost everything before I met you," he said. "My ship, my family, even hope. But then I saw you in that cage," he added. "And something told me to stand up again. You saved me." Kira's eyes widened. "I thought you saved me." Jacob smiled. "Maybe we saved each other." They both looked out at the stars again. Not speaking for a while, the patrol ship was taking them to a neutral station, one that welcomed refugees, orphans, and survivors. There, they would decide what to do next, where to go, who to become. A few hours later, Kira sat with a station counselor. The woman was kind, with silver hair and soft eyes. "Your paperwork is being processed," she said. "You'll be listed as a legal citizen, no longer marked as property." Kira nodded quietly, fingers resting on her new ID chip. "Do you know your full species name?" the counselor asked. Gently, Kira shook her head. "No, that's okay," the woman said, smiling. "We'll write unknown origin, and we'll give you a choice to update it later." "What about a last name?" the woman asked. Kira hesitated, then looked through the glass window where Jacob stood waiting. She whispered, "Kira Holt." The counselor looked up. "Holt." Kira nodded again. "He gave me a name when I had none, so now I share his." The counselor smiled and entered it into the system. "Welcome, Kira Holt," she said. "You're officially you." Later, as they walked through the station market, everything felt new. Smells of food, music playing from a street vendor, children running through open plazas. Kira kept looking around like she was on another world. Noticed and laughed. You okay? She nodded. It's just. People here don't look afraid. Not afraid of me, not afraid of being taken. Jacob looked around too. It's a rare place, he said. But good people still exist. They found a small living unit. On the quiet side of the station, one bedroom, a soft bed, and a desk by the window. Kira set her few things on the shelf, her ID chip, the broken chain she had kept from the cage, and the badge Jacob had once worn as a mechanic. These are the things that tell my story, she said softly, but I'm ready to write a new one. Days passed, then weeks. Kira trained with security officers, learning to fight. To control her reflexes, to protect others, Jacob opened a small repair shop near the docking bay. Word spread fast, the human who fixed ships and saved lives. And beside him, always, was the girl with golden eyes who never backed down. One evening, while walking past the marketplace, a small alien child tugged at Kira's coat. Are you the girl who broke the slaver ring? She asked. Kira knelt down and smiled. I'm someone who didn't give up, she replied. And you should never give up either. The child smiled and ran off. Jacob stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. You're becoming a legend, he teased. Kira looked at him. Let them tell stories, she said. But the truth is, I'm just starting. That night, she sat by the window again, staring into the stars. This time, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel like nothing. She felt ready. Ready to protect. Ready to grow. Ready to live. Jacob came over, placing a warm drink beside her. So, he said, what's next? Kira looked up at the stars one last time before smiling. We go where people need us, she said, because someone once came when I needed help the most. And I won't forget that. Jacob raised his mug to new beginnings. Kira clinked her cup against his. To freedom, she said. And together, under the quiet hum of the stars, they moved forward, no chains, no cages, no past to hold them back. Only a future they would shape together.